You're listening to Stimulus Tech Talk, a conversation-based podcast created by Stimulus Technologies that covers a range of topics related to business and technology.
Welcome to Stimulus Tech Talk. I'm Lipp, the marketing manager at Stimulus Technologies, and I am here today with Nathan Whittacre, CEO of Stimulus Technologies, and we are going to be talking about proactive versus reactive IT solutions and then how it affects your downtime. Welcome, Nathan.
Thanks, Sherry. I have to say I'm very excited today, not to talk about this, but also probably about the time this episode's airing, I'm going to be seeing penguins in life, in real life. Real penguins. So, we get asked a lot how the penguin became our logo. And do you know the story, Sherry? Why the penguin is our logo?
I think so. I think it goes back to Linux and
it does.
The beginnings of IT, web, and all that stuff.
Yeah, so when we started the company, we used Linux a lot for different things. I was, really early adopter of Linux. I remember back in high school and college days downloading, very early versions of Linux, Slackware, and Red Hat, and different Linux distributions, and just playing around with them. Just really impressed with the operating system and learning about it. And Tux, the Linux penguin, was invented by Linus Torvalds, who's the creator of Linux. And I thought it was a really cool logo. And then, one of our original logo for the company was a lightning bolt. And so I thought about incorporating that into the penguin and combining the two. And that's how the Linux penguin came about. But very excited to go. Like I said, about this time when this airs, I will be racing at Ironman New Zealand. And part of our trip is we're going to go visit penguins down on the South Island. And I actually had no idea that there were penguins on the South Island of New Zealand until my wife told me. So we're going to go see some rare yellow-eyed penguins.
Cool. I think I've seen a little documentary about that you don't expect to find penguins there, and there they are.
It's, you think about like New Zealand being, tropical and, maybe a warm place, but it's actually like the southern island, especially. We're going to see a fjord and a glacier, and I'm going to go hiking on a glacier. So it's pretty cold. So, and then I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. So we're going to go visit some more Lord of the Rings sites.
Okay. But you're not racing with the penguins.
They'd probably beat me in the swim, I'm sure. But no, the race is on the North Island, and no penguins up there, unfortunately.
Okay. And bringing one back from the office penguin.
I think that the New Zealanders would frown on me taking a penguin.
All right.
So, anyways, a little segue there. I was my goal was to throw Sherry a little off kilter this morning. So
yeah,
I'll throw it back to you.
Yeah.
What's that?
I didn't even know you were going to New Zealand.
Well, there it is. So
Yes.
we were there last year, and really I enjoyed the race, the Ironman in New Zealand. My wife did not enjoy it as much, and so we're going back so she has a better race.
Okay.
Either she's glutton for punishment or needs some redemption from the race, one of the two.
Yeah, well, that's a fun trip, I'm sure. Either way.
Well, it's funny. And I'm sorry, we're going on a way segue here. We're based out here on the West Coast, and my wife's a big world traveler. She did a lot of traveling in her youth, backpacking towards Europe, and so she's been all over the world. And this is a new phase for me. I really hadn't done much traveling outside of going to Peru on my mission, and so we've been doing a little bit more traveling, and it's actually faster for us to get to New Zealand than it is to go to Europe from the West Coast here. So it's a it's a long flight, but it's a straight flight from here. Whereas it seems to get to Europe, it's kind of tough from the West Coast here. It's just a longer flight.
It's very
So
long. Yeah, I've done it twice. Yeah.
yeah, you think there's places that should be easy to get to from the U.S., but it's certainly not. I can't. I hope they get the supersonic travel someday, so it's like an hour
Yeah,
from Las Vegas to London or something. That would be amazing.
that would be.
Sign me up for that.
Yeah.
All
All
right,
right.
back to IT. Sorry,
Back to
segued us there.
we could
For a
talk
little.
about travel, but IT. So we are talking about a proactive approach, which of course is stimulus. Wants our clients to do a proactive approach versus a reactive approach to IT. And how would you define that, Nathan?
Well, when we started the company, I think you could get away with being reactive on technology. And reactive is where you fix a problem when it comes up. So I'll take the analogy to your car. Reactive is you get a flat tire, you replace a flat tire, something breaks, you get it fixed. Whereas proactive is doing the oil changes or doing your regular 30,000, 60,000 mile maintenance items. And often when you do it to your car, you're fixing things that may not be broken yet but could potentially cause major problems. And so when we're talking about IT infrastructure, we are being proactive by doing things to your network, to cybersecurity, to the environment that should prevent larger problems from occurring and causing major issues. So, on your vehicle, if you don't change your oil every 3,000 or 5,000 miles, your engine's not going to blow up at 3,001 miles or 5,001 miles. But, if you don't change it for 10,000 or 20,000 miles, you could cause catastrophic failure inside your engine as, your oil, clogs up all the ports inside and can cause, lubrication issues. And then eventually everything will stop running. And that's the same way with IT is it might not happen immediately, but when you're proactive or when you're not proactive, then you are causing catastrophic problems down the road. And that's what we're trying to prevent is doing those regular maintenance, doing those things that may not seem necessary in the moment, but can save you a lot of heartache in the future.
And do you find that some business owners maybe have a misconception about how long downtime may last if they're doing a reactionary approach and something happens? Have you found that some people are under the assumption that it can be fixed very quickly?
Yeah, that's is the assumption is one, a lot of times they think, well, it won't happen to us. We've never had a ransomware attack or we've never had, a hacker get into our system. So, we're too small, it won't happen to us. Or our server's always been operating just fine. We've been working without any problems. Everything lasts for, 10, 12 years. We've never had a major catastrophe. And then their thought is we could just call up the IT company and they could just come to the rescue and we'll be back up and running in a couple of hours. But there's no server store down the street. You can't just order something from Dell or HP and expect it to arrive like an Amazon package the next day. So a lot of times, if you have a server in your office that's running a line of business application, for example, and that server goes down and you have no redundancy on your network, it could be weeks before you're fully operational again, especially if we have to recover data, restore from backups, rebuild the system. It's an extensive process to get things back up and running. So it is much more catastrophic to the business to have a major failure like that than prevent that failure by installing proper redundancies in place, proper servers, backups, and things like that. So there's definitely a lot of things you can do to prevent that type of catastrophe from happening. But if you don't, and you don't have those redundancies in place, I think the time to full restoration is a lot longer than most business owners think it is.
And that's a good segue into what kind of tools do we use to kind of to take this proactive approach? We can start with cloud. We had a whole podcast on that, but it's going back a little ways now. Like, what's the purpose of cloud and how does that help?
Yeah, so a couple of different things. As we move more and more data into cloud infrastructure, there's a lot of redundancy built into cloud infrastructure. So there's less likelihood of your systems going down if it's in the cloud. It's not perfect. Cloud systems, even Microsoft 365 or Amazon Web Services or Google, they go down periodically, but the likelihood of being out for days or weeks at a time is much lower. So that's one thing, is if you can move things out to a cloud environment, it's better. But that's not 100% accurate if you don't back things up. So your data still needs to be backed up, even if it's in a cloud environment, because hackers can get in there, people can delete things. There's data that can be lost even if it's in a cloud environment. So when we talk about redundancy, we want to have data in multiple places, have your system be able to operate out of multiple locations in the event of catastrophe. So even though we talk a lot about cybersecurity and preventing hacking and preventing ransomware and fraud and things like that, there's still other things that happen from an IT infrastructure standpoint. Buildings burn down, there's theft, there's hardware failures. There's a lot of things that we worried more about 15 years ago than we do today. I think hardware is a little bit better than it used to be, but they still happen and they can still be catastrophic to a business. So having your server redundant in a cloud environment. So if you have a server in your office and you have it backed up into a cloud environment, if something happens to that server, for example, it's stolen or it breaks, hardware failure, you can restore operations off of a cloud server within maybe hours and have near zero loss of data. So that's one way we use cloud to prevent that type of catastrophe from happening. Other things that the cloud is good for, and it's really nice, is a lot of your data being in the cloud, a lot of your applications being in the cloud. You could have redundant workstations, maybe one or two spare desktops or laptops in your office. So if one of your users' devices goes down, you could quickly get them back up and running on a different device and not have to, restore all their data from backup and get their applications reloaded. You could have, everything ready to go. They log in. It looks pretty much like what they were running before, and there's very little loss of productivity for that employee. So we recommend for our clients to have, a few devices, spare and ready to go, so that if their users, if a user has a piece of equipment that fails, they can get up and running quickly. So it's just thinking about those type of things to, prevent loss of productivity, loss of downtime, or downtime in general, and just it takes some redundancy to do that.
And what are there unique challenges if a business has to have a server on site? We were talking about that a little bit yesterday in our workshop, where you said dental offices have to have servers in their office. Um, is that different than having offsite servers as far as managing?
It is a little different. The not every business still, or a lot of businesses don't have servers in their locations anymore, but there are some what we call line of business applications that really work better in on a server on premise. So dental offices are a good example that they usually have one location. All the charts and patient data are stored in that one location. And the advantage of having the server on premise is, pulling the data, especially these large image files like X-rays. A lot of these applications want to store locally on a device. and integrate into their operating system, their line of business application, something like Dentrix or the like. They just work better in-house. And so a lot of businesses, still prefer to have the server in-house and have, control over that. And it just works better in those environments. So we see that with engineering firms a lot too. We see that, especially with these large CAD files that they have, they'll want that data in-house. CPA firms are still, often using servers in-house for, auditing and data and data protection. But again, you want to make sure that if your server goes down, your server infrastructure goes down, you can continue operations. And so having that redundancy, even if it isn't a cloud server, gives you that peace of mind at night to know that, tomorrow, if you wake up and your server's stolen or your office burns down, you can get people up and running very quickly.
And when it comes to managing threats, we've talked about this many times, but a proactive approach in having the third-party monitoring. And can you go into a little bit, kind of reasons why for that?
So there's having somebody looking over the systems to ensure that best practices are occurring. So, for example, we've talked a little bit on the podcast about the Windows 10 to Windows 11 update, but there's a lot of operating system updates that have to happen in between. And one of the best ways to prevent hacking is making sure your systems are up to date on the latest patches, latest operating system environments. But you have to have a software that enforces that and reports back to the IT company that that's happening. When we started our business, we would go around manually on each computer because these tools weren't available. And we'd have to look to see, is the antivirus loaded? Is it the latest version? Run the updates on the machine manually. We'd update all the other software. And it was like, an hour per computer, at least once a month to get all this done. And it was honestly disruptive to the environment because the user wouldn't be able to work on their machine while we were doing these updates. Now, we do it automatically overnight, and then we get reports back into our system that these patches are occurring, the antivirus EDR systems are up to date. And then even more than that, we're monitoring user actions and environmental actions on the computer so that if a user clicks on a bad link or it appears that it's, ransomware is downloaded or something like that, that we can take immediate action and be proactive on preventing that from causing major issues on the network, and prevent that catastrophe from happening. So that monitoring is an essential part of being proactive, so that we are solving problems before they become major issues, and then being proactive on making sure all those updates, security patches, and all those things are happening.
Have you encountered where somebody maybe didn't do those updates and had an issue?
Oh yeah, it's over time, it's always that's a constant issue that an old operating system, kind of again going back to with updates. It's been 10 years now. Like Windows Server 2003 went end of life, and people didn't update it immediately, thinking it wasn't important, and then those servers were hacked through brute force attack on remote desktop, for example. And those things we've seen over time occur. So it's really important, especially these big operating system updates, that they occur, because that's one of the easiest ways for hackers to get into your system is when you're running out-of-date software, out-of-date operating systems. They look for those systems and vulnerabilities and use that to get in.
So if somebody, business owners managing this, we work with a lot of smaller businesses. If they're kind of on their own, what steps should they take to identify where they need to be more proactive in their IT?
Well, we often talk about tabletop exercises. Ask that question of, if this happens to my environment, if my server's stolen, if my internet goes down, if a user clicks on a bad link, what am I doing right now to prevent that from causing a catastrophe in my system? Um, and especially, even if you're working on cloud environments, all your data's in the cloud. If you lose access to that, if somehow data was shut down, or that company went out of business, how would you continue operating? Those are questions, periodically you should ask, maybe in an annual planning session of your company, is how do we continue operating even if, X happens to my business? And then ask questions like, how do we prevent that from causing a catastrophe? Because when these things happen, they can cause permanent damage to businesses and have them shut down. I mean, it's we see it in the news. We see companies that don't recover from these type of events, even if they have proper insurance. It's really hard to start back up a business that hasn't operated for weeks or months because of major downtime. To get your clients back and your customers back is really hard. It's like starting new. So these are questions that should be asked, and then maybe again along the insurance line too, is ask your insurance agents, like, how can they help prevent these type of catastrophes from happening or causing major financial damage to your business.
And that was going to be my next question was, what are the financial benefits of being proactive? And I think you pretty much said, we used to do a webinar that said, the right approach can save you 80,000 in damages, and so probably the benefit is not having those losses.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the primary benefits, but a lot of people, I think the government had to mandate that we buy car insurance, because there's a certain percentage of the population that would just go out and buy car insurance regardless whether the government mandates it or not. But I think a large majority would say, oh, I've never been in a car accident. I haven't been in a car accident in 20 years or 30 years. I don't really need insurance, or I don't need my home insurance, or whatever it may be. And then these catastrophes happen that are unexpected and can cause serious damages to us personally or to our businesses. And so ensuring that we have um, the financial backing and the right policies in place to prevent that. But honestly, I think the other side of it is a better way to look at it too, is if you're running a business that's really efficient, if you're doing those updates, if you're maintaining your systems well, it increases your bottom line because your employees and your staff are more productive. You are providing better services to your clients. Your employees are happier, and it makes for a better working environment. So it's not just a fear of loss, it's also, the gain to the bottom line of your business, because you're a more productive and better business when doing these things anyways.
All right. Well, last question, how do we help businesses with this?
So the softball question, Sherry, there we go. So our approach has been for 20 years now. We started out about 20 years ago calling it proactive wellness plans, and that's our goal as Stimulus is being proactive and solving these problems before they become major issues, but also working with our clients to make their businesses better. So our approach is installing tools on the computers and the entire environment to monitor what's going on, ensuring those patches and updates are occurring, reporting to us if there's any antivirus issues or system issues before they occur. We get alerts, if there's a server that goes offline or equipment that goes offline, and often we're calling, at 6 o'clock in the morning, the office manager saying, "Hey, we noticed your server's offline. We'd like to help." And we're monitoring that and know what's going on. So that's our approach to being proactive, and then on the other side of it too is working with the business owners on putting budgets together, understanding what equipment they need to have, what systems they need to have to ensure that if all heck breaks loose, as they say, that we can get you back up and running quickly. And there's a lot of things that we can do for our clients, whether it's redundant servers, cloud backup, cloud storage, and redundancy in that prevents this type of catastrophe from becoming even worse for your business.
All right. Well, thanks, Nathan, and thanks everybody for listening.